Hi YouTube, I'm Simon and this is a response to SteveBenway and his Friday talkie question of what different types of gaming media do you like? And as soon as I heard him ask that, I thought that is a question that I want to answer, something that I'm interested in talking about. So here you go, Steve, here is my response to that. Now, there are many different types of media that I like for one reason or another, and I'm going to pick out a few of those and then I'm going to tell you about my favourite. And I think the best way to do it is to do it chronologically. So starting with my earliest system, the Acorn Electron back in 1985, the first media format I obviously came into contact with was tape. Couldn't afford discs back in those days, so tape was what all of my games came on, and to be honest with you, I didn't really like it. I didn't like that the games took ages to load, that they sometimes crashed for no reason, and you had to rewind the tape when you wanted to play the game again. But having said that, as much as I didn't like them back in the day, now I've really got a place in my heart for this format. Well, obviously this is looking at it through rose-coloured and nostalgia-tinted glasses, but I do like tape. And I like having tapes in my collection. I just like holding them and, you know, looking at them. Brings back lots of memories, opening up and looking at the inlays for the games, looking at the screenshots, that kind of stuff. So they are cute. Okay. The next format was cartridge for me, and it was the Sega Master System. And those cartridges I still like to this day. There's not a lot of variety in Master System cartridges. The vast majority of them look almost identical. They're black cartridges with a red label with the name in most of the time in the same font. But they work really well, and I had very few problems with any of my Master System games, and nothing that a quick blow along the cartridge pins couldn't sort out. Even to this day, games that I've picked up that are 25 years old, they still work really well. Also, I'd just like to briefly mention another Sega cartridge that I prefer to the Master System, and in some ways it's its predecessor, and that is the Sega Mark III. I much prefer these, not just the shape of them, which in many ways is similar to the Atari cartridges that Steve was talking about, but the fact that they've got art on them rather than just a name, just the size and shape I prefer. So I've only got a couple of these. I don't have a Sega Mark III, and I don't foresee owning one anytime soon because they're a little bit difficult to get your hands on, and when you can find them, they're fairly expensive, but sometime in the future I will. But the next format I had was quite different again. This was disc and the Amiga. And one of the things Steve was talking about also, not just the cartridges themselves, as in how good are they as a format. One of the things he was talking about was stackability of them, storage. And Amigas and their boxes are, well, if you've got the space, they're great, but when you're a teenager and normally bedroom space is limited, they're a bit of a pain in the arse with all those giant boxes when really all you need is the little 3.5-inch floppy, which I think is a good format. I personally haven't had too many problems with the 3.5-inch disc. I know, Steve, you were talking about now having quite a few problems trying to get games to load, and to be honest, I've got a fair few Amiga games, but the vast majority of them I haven't even tested. It's a crime that I've got, and actually I've got two Amigas, and I don't really use it that much, which is a shame because I don't have the space to have it out and use it all the time. It has to be unboxed and plugged in, and I'm just a little bit lazy, I guess. So I don't know if my Amiga games, if many of them still work. But after that, I guess for me, came the format CD, the CD-ROM, and Steve also pointed this out, talking about the PlayStation and the PlayStation's black discs, which I think are very cool, but I absolutely hate the European PlayStation cases. They're far too bulky. The little inserts in them, the cover inserts, just fall out all the time. They're just, oh. There's not a lot I hate, but PlayStation 1 boxes, yeah, do not like them. But the discs are very cool, and also haven't had too many problems with those, but discs just get scratched and look dirty a lot quicker and easier than cartridges do. So even owning a PlayStation 1, I still favoured the cartridge format. And I suppose moving closer to newer formats, of course, we're still using DVD, which essentially has all the same issues as CDs do. But one of the formats that I was quite impressed with was something released in 2005, and that is this one, the UMD. It's a really sweet little format. I mean, I liked the idea of taking mini DVDs essentially and storing them in a somewhat protective case. Unfortunately, as you can see here, this is actually my very first PSP disc. It's the starter disc that came with it, and it's kind of cracked and falling apart, and I really haven't mistreated any of my PSP stuff, so I don't know. I only realised this morning when looking at them that it's cracked, so I don't know what's going on there with that. But still, I like that format. I don't have a lot of PSP games because I don't do a lot of handheld gaming, but it's nice, it's nice. And then moving on to the newer formats that are using DVDs, yeah, they're fine. But I must say that I do really like the PlayStation 3 cases. I really prefer them to the Xbox cases. They're that little bit smaller, slightly more compact, and honestly, I think they look a lot better. But obviously that's just personal preference. So, I've mentioned a few different formats there, but none of those are my favourite. By far, my favourite is what is essentially a pretty crappy format because the storage is very limited. But, well, it's this. Yes, the Sega card. Now, there weren't very many games released using this format. There's maybe a dozen. And of those, most of them were rubbish, including, hang on, I don't really like the games that are on them. Well, there's a couple that I quite like. But I really like the idea of having this tiny little card that's, it's small, but it's not too small. I mean, the latest things like the 3DS, or I guess the DS, and the PS Vita, I just think they're a little bit too small and fiddly. I mean, I know it's nice that you can keep a ton of them in your pocket if you need, but I'd be a little bit too worried I'd lose them. Whereas those cards, and also these ones here, which I really, really like. I mean, these are much better. The Hue cards from the PC Engine. Much larger storage capacity than the Sega ones, and some fantastic games released on those. And I would absolutely love to have the current generation of game systems using a media format of that kind of size and shape. I mean, be they handhelds or consoles, it doesn't matter to me. Just imagine how much you could physically cram onto a card that size, how many gigabytes. When you think about a tiny little micro SD card, I think these days can hold about 32 gigabytes, probably more. Something that size, hundreds of gigabytes. Of course, it's too expensive, and this is just a dream. All of the companies are aching to move away from physical media. But in my dream world, where Sega have got a new console out, that would be the media format of my choice. Well, those are my thoughts on this question. Thanks to Steve for posing it. I hope you found it interesting listening to my answer. And to everyone else, thanks for watching. From my spare room to wherever you are, this is Simon signing off. Bye bye.